Hi everyone, this is Ronnie, and on this channel I talk a lot about the raw vegan diet. I'm also the founder of the UK Fruitfest, and we've got a festival coming up this year. If you want to find out more about it, you can go to fruitfest.co.uk and join our announcement list. So thank you very much for your support with that, and if you're interested. What I want to talk about today is something that came up because a friend was asking a number of people for advice and ideas, people in the raw vegan community, about a situation he was in. This is not the first time that I've been approached with this question, and it's about antibiotics. And to give you a picture of the situation, some of you know the guy I'm talking about. I don't. I'm sure he'd be quite happy for me to mention him, but I won't mention him just in case. But he had injured his hand with a knife. He was actually trying to cut a watermelon open. It must have slipped, went in his hand, damaged a tendon, and went to the hospital. And for a lot of raw vegans and people that have come from this side of the health perspective, dealing with hospitals, doctors, stuff like that can be a little bit of a different experience, and can sometimes be, you're a bit more wary of what they're asking you to do maybe, and they're not sure if everything they're being told to do is necessary some of the times, right? And he'd been provided with some antibiotics and told to take these. And what we hear a lot in the natural health side of things is like antibiotics, they mess with your gut biome, they can cause harm, for digestion, and they're antibiotic, they're anti-life. And there's a lot of people that would have essentially a perspective of just avoid them. You don't need them. Be healthy. Let's look for an alternative method. Is there a herb I can have instead? And that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not the world expert on antibiotics, medicine, not a doctor, or any of that stuff, right? Happy to admit that. But antibiotics, as far as I know, well, I won't get into that right now. But firstly, so he was obviously concerned, and the issue with antibiotics and the reason people take them is mostly because of infection and bacteria, virus, that kind of area of thing. Maybe not virus, but bacterial kind of stuff, infection. And I know that many people in the raw vegan movement would probably have said to him, don't take them, you don't need them, do a fast, do a cleanse, and what have you. They have a complete dogmatic anti-all medication thing. And for me, if you have heart disease, I don't think that your best option is to take heart disease medication and low cholesterol lowering medication and blood thinning medication. I don't think that's the best thing to do. Of course, I'm against medication in certain situations, but I'm only really against medication where it is clear that the issue is caused by diet, and that changing the diet can solve the issue, and that all the drugs are really doing is help the person deal with the symptoms. In that situation, I don't really like the drugs. Apart from symptoms that are really difficult and maybe for a short period of time you need to alleviate from, like severe pain and stuff like that. I understand that people want to take painkillers, but obviously you want to get to a point where you're not having to take them, right? But my opinion on this over the years, and maybe back in the day I might have went along with that. I don't know. I might have went along with that idea. Oh, you don't really need antibiotics and all that stuff. But I've personally changed, or I've grown or developed and become a bit wiser with all this stuff. And probably this is the value for me of having gone to events, having been around people. A lot of you've went online and seen people present themselves. A lot of these people I've been around. I know the reality of them and their lifestyle and how they think more than a lot of people do. So I remember being at events, I think it was the Slovenian festival or the Danish festival, and I was with, for example, Doug Graham and Rosalind Graham, and they're probably the expert hygiene teachers of the world, like incredible teachers of health information, right? But I remember something happened with her daughter. Something happened. She got, I don't know, something got stuck in her ear or something happened, and they immediately took her to a hospital. Like they didn't even pause. So it was something very minor, I think, relatively, but they took her to a hospital or a doctor or something. And it was funny. I saw that moment. I was like, wow, they don't try and just like fix it themselves, or they don't do something, you know. And I just realized that that's the reality of life, rather than what we want to kind of believe. We want to think, oh, I don't want to ever have to go to hospital again. I don't want to ever take a medication again. I don't want to ever see a doctor again. And that's great. Um, but you really don't want to develop a dogma around this that leads you to dangerous situations, that leads you to actually losing your health. And people have done that. There are so many examples of that. And I don't know how many people over the history of the world have decided not to take antibiotics and developed infection and either died or lost parts of their body. But it's probably a lot. A lot of you are going to say, no, that's not true, and blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you. I'm absolutely telling you. People used to die all the time because of infection. Because they would get an open wound, it got infected, and we didn't have any clue what to do about it. And people died. It was a major cause of death. It's one of the main reasons people died in surgeries. The surgeries were so risky. Because like 50% of people that died during surgery. Because of these kind of bacterial infections and things that harmed people. Once again, not the expert, don't know the names of all these things, how they function, but that's basically what I've gained from it, right? So when my friend came to me with this thing about what happened with his hand, he said, what's your opinion on this? Or actually, he might not have even come to me. I think he came to a group of us and asked and got different opinions. And I said, listen, it's just not worth the risk of losing your hand. That's the way I would look at it. It's not worth the risk of losing your finger. They're not giving you these antibiotics for nothing. Like, they've given these millions of times to millions and millions of people because of a specific reason that has been figured out many years ago. And they've seen what happens when people don't take them. Now, the risk of that happening without the antibiotics might have been very low. Maybe it was 1 in 1,000. Maybe it's 1 in 10,000. Maybe it's 1 in 50,000 people might develop that kind of infection and lose their finger or lose their hand. That risk isn't worth it to me. To me personally. I want the risk to be zero. I'm not trying to win a medal for being perfectly like medication free my whole life. I'm not trying to win a medal for that. And people that hang their hat on that and want to I don't know, develop a whole idea of themselves around that concept, around the like I never mess with conventional medicine. Like, you can't. Like, it's not possible. You're gonna have situations in life where you have to go to the conventional medical system. Accidents. If anyone's in an accident, you get severe trauma to your body. What you've got no choice. You're gonna take the painkillers. Do you know what I mean? You're gonna take the surgery to reconstruct your body and stuff like that if it happens. You gotta be wise about these things, and this is about wisdom, health wisdom, not health dogma. And so, but the reason that I was encouraging him as well is not just because of the risk. And the other side of it is, what is the risk of taking the antibiotics? for a short period of time. It's not like they're said you need to take these for life. He's taking them for a short period of time. 7 days, 5 days, 3 days. That's how long they sometimes give them antibiotics for. But the reason is that I've had experience now with a number of people. A few people have come to me over the years with that kind of situation. At least one other person. But other people I've seen, like Chris Kendall, had his hand bitten by a cat. I think he took antibiotics because they said, once again, you can get an infection from this and lose your hand. It ain't worth it. And there's no real downside to taking antibiotics for a few days. There's really no major risk to that I've ever heard of or seen. I had another friend in Thailand who was like perfect raw vegan, totally 100% raw vegan, very healthy, very fit, young girl. And she was losing her voice. She didn't know what was happening. She wasn't feeling good. She was losing her voice. And she went to the doctor and they said it could have been, I think, Lyme's disease maybe, or something like that. And we bumped into her randomly one day and she was like, I'm glad I bumped into you. Just been asking different people about this, but I've been given these antibiotics. I've not taken them yet. I've got this kind of thing with my throat. It might be Lyme's disease and I'm just not sure what to do here. And I was like, take them. Take them. We were speaking to her for a while, but I was saying, this it's not worth the risk of damaging your voice over, or damaging the throat over. If they've given you that, it's because other people have had that situation and it's dealt with it. And she did, and literally the next time we saw her, virtually back to normal. As soon as she started taking them. These antibiotics work for specific reasons against specific infections and specific bacteria. Of all the medication, they are one of probably the best. Probably the best that we've got. And this is me saying this without having done like incredible research into it and all that. But they're one of the things that if someone says, I've been offered antibiotics and blah, 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 what should I do? That's the kind of thing that I'm like, well, I think you should take them. Most of the time I would tell people to go along with their doctor's advice, by the way. I'm not anti-doctors, anti-medicine. And often if someone says, oh, my doctor said this, and I'm like, okay, well, are you doing that? No, I've not. Well, why are you not? Why wouldn't you follow your doctor's advice? Oh, because I was looking for another opinion. Like what? In a Facebook group? Like, I've seen this, where people are like, oh, I think I'm vitamin D deficient. Why do you think that? Well, my doctor, this. Okay, so what was his answer? Well, he told me to do this. Okay, so are you doing that? No, I was thinking, well, why not? Why are you trying to ask a Facebook group? We don't know your health history. Your doctor has access to your history. How do we know how to help you out? So anyway, that's a aside. Going back, me personally, I had a mouth ulcer, and I had the opportunity to take antibiotics. Didn't really think I needed to take them or whatever, but took them. Mouth ulcer went away within days. I mean, within days. It had been there for a while, and it just disappeared. These antibiotics, they work. I don't know if they cause harm to the microbiome. They might to some degree, but the harm that they cause is not anywhere near the harm of having an infection in your mouth that can actually go to your brain and kill you, losing your hand, losing your voice because of bacterial infection. Not worth it. So this is where we take a balanced approach. We don't say, oh, I'm not gonna do what they tell me to do, those evil corporations. And these antibiotics, they're probably not the big cash cow of the pharmaceutical industry. They're probably very, very little margin on these. Yeah, and I remember, but I've had issues with people that don't, that, you know, it really scares me when people decide to go against that information. It really scares me. Heard stories over the years. I mean, I think Robert Lockhart, a friend of mine who passed away last year, I think he was offered antibiotics because he had an infection. And I don't think he took them, and he got worse. And he died. That's not wisdom. And he's a guy that I looked up to. He's a guy that I admired so much in many ways. And his own way of thinking about this was wrong. Just flat out wrong. And that's what it can lead to. That's what can happen. Another raw vegan friend was another guy that worked in the soil. He got an infection. Robert Lockhart got an infection from working in the soil. It can happen. And, as I say, people can lose hands, fingers from infections. It's crazy. So if they've got antibiotics, then thank your lucky stars that they have antibiotics for it, and take them. And don't be like, oh, but I'm a raw vegan, I shouldn't eat. Like, you, it's not the same thing. It's a bacterial infection. It's an infection. It's not something the body has a great ability to deal with, unfortunately. So we're not meant to get cut open. We're not meant to have our hand in the soil and stuff like that. We're not meant to so many things. So these things happen. But yeah, that kind of situation, antibiotics, especially short term, I say go for it every single time. Other situations, like if you're talking, I've heard people say they were put on antibiotics like their whole childhood or something. I get that that's a different thing. I understand that people have had maybe some problems that I've not looked into that enough. I don't know enough about that. So I understand that some people might have an aversion to it from that kind of experience if you were on them for years and years for problems that were probably to do with your diet. Let's face it. And in that situation, it's completely stupid. But in these situations, you have to weigh up the risk, reward, and all that stuff. Weigh it up. The risk is losing your hand. The risk is losing your voice. The risk is losing your life. Versus you take antibiotics. Maybe it affects your microbiome a little bit for a short period of time that you take them. But not really. Like, that is an obvious equation for me. That's an obvious equation for me. So thank you for watching. Feel free to put your comments, thoughts, and everything below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support to the channel. Any questions you've got, feel free to put information below. If you want to learn about the Fruit Festival, fruitfest.co.uk, and you can join our announcement list. We've only got a couple of months left till the festival. It's going to be exciting, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.